on the north bank of Pangong, so where India and China, the troops were in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation, and after multiple rounds of dialogue, there was a partial move back, both of Indian and Chinese soldiers. We are now being told that special forces and special frontier force personnel, their jawans, they've, in a deft maneuver, established a post close to the ridgeline, and this post, according to sources, will prevent the Chinese from moving forward. The situation along the line of actual control remains extremely volatile and tense, and not just on the north bank of Pangong So, even on the south bank of Pangong So, where the Indian army, again in a deft maneuver, occupied some commanding features on our side of the line of actual control. So the blacktop feature, which gives India a commanding view on the other side of the hill, because we're on top of that hill at Yula and Moldo Chinese garrison. It's being described as a very significant maneuver. Also Magar Hill, Gurung Hill, these are names when you think of and talk about the 1962 war or the Spangur Gap. These were places that were defended, but India had to move back in the 1962 war, or that famous battle of Rizangla. Once again, you have Indian forces in this area. How significant are these developments? Let me quickly cut across to Colonel Dinny, and Colonel Dinny commanded his battalion at Pangong. So, Colonel Dinny, what do you make of these developments?
Firstly, Gaurav, I think that these are very serious developments, and it is, and also in a way, unprecedented kind of development. Because why do I say so? Is because till now, India was always in the Indian army was in a reactive mode. The Chinese had the initiative; they occupied themselves in the disputed territory, and we were reacting to it. It is for the first time that India has done a preemptive, which actually is a proactive operation, and have occupied those places well within our side of a line of actual control, but are extremely sensitive to the PLA, both strategically and tactically. Now, in the area of the North Bank between Finger 4 and Finger 8,
okay,
those are areas which does not have much of a tactical or a strategic significance. Okay, there is territory, but other than that, there is nothing much of strategic or tactical significance in case of a conflict or otherwise. But this particular area, when occupied by the Indian Armed Forces,
okay,
does change the game a bit, in the sense that now we are in a position occupying those, as you rightly mentioned, since 62, nobody has gone and occupied that. And in a way, it was just a blessing in disguise that the Chinese were making those moves, which actually preempted us to do that. And now we are in a position wherein all those talks which till now were happening, wherein I'm told that it is stuck, okay, at the area of Pangong So, and the moving back and of changing, going back to the status quo ante there. Now, when Indian forces are there, the parity has been established as far as when the talks are also there, that there is, that it has to be, the situation is, sensitive to both sides now. So that is what as I see that it has been taken to a level where escalation has taken place, so that there is a window for de-escalation.
Fair enough. Is this just parity, or is it now very clearly advantage India as far as deployment is concerned? But Professor Brahmachalani, few people understand the Chinese mind as well as you do. And in your appreciation, has India now changed the rules of the game, no longer reactive but proactive? And how would China react to this?
I think the next 2 months are critical, because the Chinese are increasingly aggressive and seeking to provoke India with fresh incursions, as we have seen the last weekend. The contraction of the Indian economy by nearly 24% in the most recent quarter, which is the worst contraction since records began, might embolden China to further expand its aggression in the mistaken belief that India is in no position to hit back or to wage a full-fledged war. India has been at the receiving end of China's aggression for more than 4 months now. But now India seems determined not to put up with further acts of Chinese aggression. So I think the developments that we have seen, the Indian operations this last weekend, suggest that India is now willing to hit back or at least defend its positions resolutely. Both the operation on the southern side of Pangong Lake as well as the latest operation on the northern side of the lake both seem to suggest that India is determined not to allow China to further enlarge the footprint of its aggression.
Oh, absolutely. This is extremely significant in terms of not just India's response, but the reaction that we're seeing from China. And many reports seem to suggest, and I'll come to an American intelligence assessment in just a moment, that China is extremely angry. Has China been outgunned in its own game? Have we outplayed China? And is this making Chinese commanders, one, uncomfortable? There is one report that seems to indicate that Beijing was very unhappy with commanders on ground. So India Today's Shiv Arur now tells us why China is extremely angry at this point of time.
In the 4 months of this simmering standoff, China has never sounded this angry, this irritated, and clearly cornered. The Indian Army's actions on the night of August 29th have given the Chinese army a taste of its own medicine. But there are very real, very specific reasons why China is feeling the heat south of Pangong. The Indian forces are currently in control of Black Top and Helmet Top, two dominant heights just south of the Pangong Lake. The Army's swift and sharp preemptive action on the intervening night of the 29th to 30th of August has ensured that it is advantage India. And this means that the Chinese positions in the area are directly in India's line of sight. An even bigger worry for China is that now all its entry points across the line of actual control are completely blocked. With a clear view of the Chinese post-SAN deployment and two successful bids at thwarting Chinese attempts at creeping up on the strategic hills in Pangong South, there is for now no threat to the Indian positions. In fact, India has now given China a taste of its own medicine. With these tactical positions, Indian forces can inflict massive damage on China within minutes if the situation escalates. At least 7 PLA positions are now in India's direct line of sight. Indian posts at heights can guide artillery, and this means that Chinese posts and tanks can be destroyed within minutes. Chinese gun positions too can be smashed at short notice. With India at an advantageous position, PLA bases, camps, supply lines are also fully vulnerable. Even the smallest movements by Chinese posts now will be 100% visible to India. Another reason that has China seeing red is India's decision to deploy the Special Frontier Force. It was this regiment that pushed back the Chinese as they attempted to intrude on Saturday night. The Chinese were clearly caught off guard by the Special Frontier Force, consisting mostly of Tibetan resistance fighters, and operates under the Indian Research and Analysis Wing. The use of Tibetan commandos is seen by China as a deliberate intent to humiliate and a political assault. All of this combined has been a strategic, tactical and political slap to China, a country that has, after a very long time, been dealt with in the only currency it understands: gunning strength, dominant action, and with zero compromise. In New Delhi, Shiv Arur for India Today.
Professor Brahmachilani, China today said it's surprised that Tibetans were a part of Indian forces here in these operations. Is India sending out a very clear signal to the dragon?
It is. It's a very clear signal. In fact, people who live in the Himalayan borderlands, they know the local terrain, they're acclimatized to living in higher altitudes. They are the best fighters to defend the local areas, and employing the Tibetan Special Force was a smart move by India. But I think we should not forget the larger picture, which is that the Chinese, since late April, encroached on multiple vantage points and occupied them. And that situation has not changed. So India is still looking at loss of considerable territory, especially highly strategic areas. And these areas stretch all the way from Depsang down to Pangong Lake. And India's latest moves are very good moves to buttress its perception of the LAC in the Pangong Lake area and the Spangur area. But it does not fundamentally change the bigger picture.
Yes.
And we have to bear in mind that China...
That's a very good point you make.
One other point that I wish to make is that China, having achieved the territorial gains it set out to accomplish, is now in the second phase of its aggression, which is consolidation. They're trying to consolidate the land grabs that they have made, including by deterring Indian counteraction and safeguarding the core territorial gains by enlarging its expansionist footprint to nearby areas. In other words, the Chinese are...
And this is something that India should not permit, or will we not permit? Let me bring in Colonel Dini. And Colonel Dini, you understand the lay of the land, and I've just returned from Daulat Beg Oldie. So it's in Depsang where Chinese are learned to be preventing our patrols from going up to some of the patrol points. What we've done in South Pangong, so do we expect China to use this area just perhaps as deception, what they tried at Chumar, but perhaps do something in closer to DBO, which may be our outpost, but a very strategic outpost?
Gaurav, one thing we must be very clear that we have now, done a military maneuver, and that's what we have done here. Now it is in the ball is actually in the Chinese court. They have actually three options. One is that they physically try to evict us from this place, which is very difficult because the terrain is such that whosoever holds the heights, he will have a terrific advantage. So that is the first option. Second option is that he, like what you rightly said, there are many strategic places where he can go and place himself there. And third is what I was mentioning, that this can be now, since both nations have escalated and it is going into a very dangerous level of escalation, that better sense prevail and he comes on the table, and then we go back to the April 2020 scenario, and that is the third option, which I hope happens. But I'm not saying that will happen, but I'm just saying that is one of the options also. So definitely there are options for him that, and we should be very careful in this particular time that he will also do something, because this is an embarrassment for him, and there is no doubt for him, for us, that this is a serious embarrassment, and knowing the
embarrassment for China, the United States, in fact, yes, Colonel Dini, a United States intelligence assessment seems to indicate that China has shot itself in the foot. This report, which appeared in US newspapers, seems to indicate that China made a mistake, especially the second time, that India is much better prepared, and that Beijing is very unhappy with Chinese commanders on ground because they chose to withdraw instead of confronting India when troops came face to face. Take a look at this report.
The United States is closely monitoring developments in eastern Ladakh, and as a US intelligence assessment indicates, China shot itself in the foot with its attempted transgression in South Pangong Tso area. The United States believes Beijing deliberately tried to provoke India with its second major transgression attempt on the southern bank of Pangong Tso. The US intelligence assessment says after the initial transgressions in May, India is now much better prepared to counter China militarily on ground, and effectively did so on the night intervening August 29th and 30th. The United States also believes that Beijing is extremely unhappy with the Chinese commanding officer on ground for ordering the PLA troops to pull back in southern Pangong Tso when a physical fight looked imminent. According to the report, also finds the timing of the Chinese incursion curious. especially with China trying to dial down tensions with India. The United States believes China underestimated public anger in India and the response of the government, where a much better prepared army was able to counter the Chinese advance, and Beijing appears to have shot itself in the foot. The report seems to suggest that the Indian forces were successful in preventing any loss of territory in the latest face-off and believes that the area is within India's territorial control. Interestingly, the United States does not believe that China provoked the latest round of standoff, but given China's past record of provocations, the US was going all along with India's story. Beijing has accused India of crossing the LAC and occupying commanding heights on the Chinese side of the LAC. However, India has been firm that Indian soldiers only occupied the commanding heights on the southern banks of Pangong to prevent a Chinese transgression. Bureau Report, India Today.
So India turning the heat on ground. Is India also turning the heat on China when another 118 apps have been banned? Now, the government says these were apps that impinged on India's sovereignty and integrity. Is that the reason? Will the government take the real step, as many suggest, is ban Huawei from 5G?
After India banned TikTok, the axe has now fallen on the popular PUBG video game. More than 3 months after India's digital strike on Chinese applications to punish the dragon for the Galwan bloodshed, the crackdown is far from over. The Narendra Modi government is in no mood to relent. After banning 59 Chinese applications in June and another 47 in July, the Modi government has banned 118 more Chinese applications. A total of 224 apps are now blocked in India. The latest digital strike comes at the back of Indian Army's offensive against the Chinese in South Pangong area of Ladakh. The spotlight this time is on PUBG. Although the video game has been developed by a subsidiary of South Korean video game company Bluehole, it is backed by China's most valuable internet major, Tencent. India is the largest market of PUBG. According to estimates from app intelligence firm Sensor Tower, PUBG has generated more than 17.5 crore installs to date. The other Chinese applications banned by India include Ludo World, Alipay, Faceu, WeChat Work, SuperClean, AppLock and VPN for TikTok. While the centre's action against Chinese applications has been swift, there's little clarity over what the Narendra Modi government will do about Chinese telecom giants Huawei and ZTE. Bureau Report, India Today.
Professor Brahmachalani banning 118 additional apps, symbolic or significant?
Largely symbolic, because all the bans that India has imposed on Chinese apps do not seriously hurt Beijing. The only way China will end its aggression is if India begins exacting mounting costs that make China's territorial gains unbeneficial to hold. The costs that India has sought to impose so far have proved inadequate to make China end its aggression. We have diplomatic leverage, we have the buying power, the trade leverage. We are not exercising that leverage. For example, if you look at the exports for July, the exports from China in July surged. There should be trade restrictions.
Yes.
We should mount an international diplomatic offensive to spotlight China's aggression. We are being too reticent, too diffident.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to start imposing costs in a calibrated and escalating manner.
Fair enough. Colonel Dinny, you agree with the US assessment that China shot itself in the foot, especially when it came the second time, because India was better prepared, and now India has changed the rules of the game.
Could you just repeat the question, please, Gaurav?
Has China shot itself in the foot, as the US assessment seems to indicate?
Absolutely. There is no doubt that, and I have been a firm believer that they have been actually shooting their foot from day one, and I firmly believe that this particular, the way this entire thing is unfolding, they did not plan it, and they did not, think through it, and they did not anticipate that such consequences also will emerge. And that is why those reports also that the political leadership is not happy with the local commanders and also there are a lot of actions which have been taken on ground which actually defies any military and other logic also. So it's quite true that they've actually shot their foot, and that is why I hope that better sense prevails and they stop it here. Otherwise, only the level of embarrassment is going to increase. That's all I can say.
Fair enough. We'll track that story very closely. Colonel Dini and Brahmacharani for the moment. Many thanks for joining me. That is all I have time for on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.